A year later, a verdict was announced to two residents of Omsk in the case of an attempt to set fire to a police truck. In early March 2022, two men, Vladimir Sergeyev and Anton Zhuchkov, came to Moscow for an anti-war rally but were immediately detained. Security officials found Molotov cocktails in their backpacks. At the time of their arrest, they attempted to commit suicide. Immediately after being discharged from the hospital, they were accused of trying to stage a terrorist attack.
Vladimir Sergeyev, who planned the arson, was sentenced to 8 years, and Anton Zhuchkov to 10 years in prison under articles on preparation for a terrorist attack and sale of narcotic substances. The first 3 years of imprisonment the man will spend in prison, the next in strict regime colony. From the message of Sota Telegram channel.
For more than a year, the trial of the artist from St. Petersburg, Sasha Skochelenko, has been going on. Now she is in jail. The girl is accused of spreading fake news about the army. She changed the price tags in the store for stickers with information about the war in Ukraine. Alexandra has a heart defect. The defense repeatedly insisted that she be placed under house arrest, but the court does not satisfy the motion.
Sasha's heart stops for 2-3 seconds. At such moments, the risk of a traumatic fall is high. She has a borderline situation. At least once every 6 months, it is necessary to conduct examinations. If her condition worsens, a cardio machine is indicated. This diagnosis also carries a risk of death. Daria Khashchevskaya, cardiologist, in a comment for Mediazona.
The owners of a bar and cafe in Perm published a penitential video in which they apologized for another video with toasts "Glory to Ukraine."
For Ukraine! Glory to Ukraine! There was an unpleasant situation about toasts for Ukraine. I didn't want to offend anyone, that's for sure. I apologize to all the guys. You know about my patriotism.
Repentance was demanded by unknown commentators who threatened that otherwise they would bring the bar and cafe to the attention of the Drug Control Department. The location of Alexei Moskalyov, the father of 6th grader who drew the anti-war drawing, remains unknown. However, while the search is underway, the propaganda media are on the alert, says Moskalyov's lawyer.
And now the authorities of the Tula region are conducting an information operation. They persuaded Masha's mother to take her in, gave her enough money to create a beautiful informational picture and distribute it in Tula propaganda publications that the child is doing well, the child is settled. That is, there is a replacement of the one story in which the father was imprisoned and the girl was hidden in a shelter for an anti-war drawing, with another story that the girl's father was imprisoned because he violated the law, but the girl is fine. Dmitry Zakharov, lawyer, in an interview with Current Time.
Last year alone, according to Important Stories publication, 274 people were convicted in Russia on charge of public calls for terrorism, 212 for extremist activities and 336 for vandalism.
Ukraine continues to fight not only the external threat, but also on the anti-corruption front. The fight against corruption is one of the 7 requirements that Kyiv must fulfill on its way to joining the European Union. Results are already significant. In the Group of States Against Corruption, an organization created by the Council of Europe, they note that the level of implementation of the recommendations is no longer globally unsatisfying as it was in April last year.
The war that is happening in Ukraine because of the aggression of the Russian Federation puts some other priorities on top. And we perfectly understand that. And when you are fighting for your lives, actually, when you are fighting for the freedom of Ukrainian country, it is very hard to have any other priorities besides winning the war and saving the lives of the citizens. The progress that Ukraine made during the war is really something special.
The organization provided recommendations to Ukraine back in 2017. The goal was to fight corruption in the structures most prone to bribery among members of parliament, judges and prosecutors. In the latest report, Greco experts say that Ukraine has managed to implement 15 of the 31 recommendations. Kyiv also partially fulfilled 9 more. If for Ukraine a full-scale Russian war has become another impetus for the fight against corruption, then in the Federation the situation is getting worse. everyone who has access to the state funds in Russia earns money on the army.
Путінська еліта.
The Putin elites are just such kleptocrats who plundered the entire army, plundered their own country and continue to do this. There is, in principle, this system in Russia. It devours the federation from the inside, and when kickbacks are under 70 to 80%, this is a written history, as they built agent networks in Ukraine. The question is, where was it all done and why did they not succeed? Everything is very simple. If 1 billion is allocated, 50% is stolen right away in Moscow, if not 60%, and then until it reaches the curators in Ukraine, another half of this amount is stolen.
It turns out that the Russian army does not have enough fuel because it has already been resold. Most of the Soviet equipment is not suitable for combat operations. According to the Ukrainian Center for Strategic Communications, in 2012 a Russian military company received about $26 million to develop an aircraft system for interception of non-strategic missiles. Some of the dummy companies through which the funding was channeled were registered at public toilet addresses. Bulletproof vests, armor and tanks, and rations for Russian soldiers turned out to be unsuitable. In Russia, the international anti-corruption organization Transparency International has even stopped its activities.
The decision to recognize the international anti-corruption movement Transparency International as an undesirable organization, which we consider sudden, unreasonable, unmotivated and offensive, as well as the practice of applying legislation on such organizations in Russia, makes the further work of the Russian transparency practically impossible. Transparency International Russia on Facebook.
In addition, Transparency International in Russia faces fines of 800,000 rubles. Back in March, the organization received several notices from Roskomnadzor for non-compliance with the law on foreign agents.